Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. Sorry to get sidetracked there, Mike.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Who would you take, Russell Wilson or Andrew Luck?
You know, I said last year before the Seahawks won the Super Bowl that I prefer Russell Wilson. There's just something about him. He's got that quality. He's got that drive, that Peyton Manning level of determination, spending every waking moment, every day of the year doing something to perfect his craft. And I know that he's much shorter, but it hasn't mattered so far for Russell Wilson.
I think if he's 6'3", this isn't an argument, right? That's the difference here from being 5'11" to 6'3". That would change everybody's opinion on Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think that's right. But also, he really does have a pretty good team around him. And you'll wonder how he would succeed or not succeed with a different team without that defense. He doesn't have the best offensive weapons around him, and the offense is still pretty good with him running it. But having that defense makes a quarterback look a lot better.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that I don't think Russell Wilson could do what Andrew Luck did in Indianapolis. I do think Andrew Luck could have done what Russell Wilson did in Seattle, but I still think Russell Wilson has proven to be in the conversation as an elite quarterback. I think he's different. It's not about numbers. It's about feel. And
he's the guy you want to have running your football team.
Yes,
period.
yes, I love the kid. So, and Andrew Luck has been spectacular as well. We're lucky because we got that next wave. We were worried about the next wave of quarterbacks after Brady, Breeze, Manning, some of the older guys. Got a pretty good group, and then, we got some guys who are coming in as well, led by Johnny Manziel. I'll get to that in a moment. But the pressure that the NFL put on Arizona, I know you were trying to get somebody from the NFL to talk about this. If the NFL doesn't put that pressure on Arizona, does this bill get passed, in your opinion?
I think it still probably would have been vetoed because so many other people, business leaders, et cetera, were putting pressure on the governor to veto the bill. The NFL's position was the equivalent of the guy in the movie who has the gun in his belt and he pulls his jacket back just to show it to you. That's all the NFL did, and that was enough. And they were looking into what would happen. You're talking about a short turnaround to move the Super Bowl and a lot of stuff that needs to happen.
Well, how much was the turnaround when Arizona did not vote for Martin Luther King Day, and then they moved to Pasadena? I don't know. It was 1990, I believe.
Yeah, the NFL pulled the plug, Dan, in 1990, but the game was played in 1993. And
okay.
The one big difference now, apart from all the extra hotel rooms that you need because of the media coverage, the security plan nowadays.
Okay.
Much more detailed, much harder to implement. I think that was a big factor in this.
Where were the other options here?
It would have been Tampa. First choice would have been Tampa. Tampa and Miami were the other two finalists when this one was awarded. I think Tampa would have gotten first crack. And the NFL has already made it clear that Miami's not getting another Super Bowl until they upgrade their stadium. So I think Tampa would have had every opportunity to try to host this thing.
He's Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I had a couple of things. First of all, I applaud you. You stood your ground, and you were taking on some bullets there with the 49ers and Jim Harbaugh. I guess the question we had is, who leaked this? Whose benefit was this to say Harbaugh, we almost traded him, or the Browns almost acquired him from San Francisco?
Yeah, that's one I got to take to my grave, or at least to the point where I decide to get out of this business. The day I decide to turn my back on the business, that's the first secret that I'll leak. But I'll tell you, look, everybody was in Indianapolis. I was there. The teams were there. Everyone was there. And once I caught wind of it, and based on how I caught wind of it, I was convinced someone was going to report it, and I was also convinced it was true. It was just a matter of massaging it to the point where I was comfortable going with it.
How real was it, Mike?
Oh, it's real. Oh, listen, and I believe today, if Coach Jim Harbaugh walks into Jed York's office, he's the CEO of the 49ers, and says, I don't want to be here anymore, York won't force him to stay. He's already hard enough to deal with when he wants to be there. He gets to the point where he doesn't want to be there. I don't think they're going to keep him another day, and I believe it did come down to Jim Harbaugh deciding to stay with the 49ers, that the deal was in place for him to go to Cleveland if he wanted it, and he ultimately didn't want it.
Yeah, I'm looking at Andy Dalton's numbers compared to Luck or Russell Wilson.
No, but Andy Dalton's done it. He's got all these records.
He has unbelievable weapons in Cincinnati. Oh, my God.
He's got A.J. Oh, first of all, he's got a bunch of undrafted guys and A.J. Green.
Who does Andrew Luck have? T.Y. Hilton.
Who's
he
awesome.
He doesn't have a running back.
Yeah, but Dalton's not going to get paid anywhere near these guys. He's definitely a tier below.
Okay, but Andy Dalton has unbelievable weapons. Unbelievable.
Well, who are these weapons besides A.J. Green, who doesn't really run routes?
He's got 2 tight ends. He's got 5 wide receivers. Giovanni Bernard as his running back. That's not the problem.
The tight end's overrated. Gresham had like 8 drops in a playoff game.
They even had a third tight end who had a couple unbelievable games.
And Eifert disappeared at the end of the year. Bernard, they're worried about running back.
You're taking it personally because you like Andy Dalton.
I do.
Okay. Let's bring back Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com. See what I deal with, Mike, on a day-to-day basis?
Let me complicate this a little more. What if the Bengals would sign Michael Vick? Who they were interested in him in 2009. What if they would add him to that mix to push Dalton?
Okay, where is Vick going next year?
Well, he wants to go somewhere where he'll be the unquestioned starter without having to compete for the job. That's not going to happen. He's going to have to compete somewhere. The question is, where is the best place for him? The Jets have been mentioned. The Vikings are a possibility. The Bengals fascinate me, and when word came out last week, the Bengals are thinking about giving Dalton a contract extension. My first thought was that's a little bit of a smokescreen to maybe mask the idea that they could make a run at Vick. Wow. Put Vick in that offense and keep him healthy. Good luck with that part of it. But you put Vick in that offense, that's a much better team.
And you know what? The one thing the Vikings don't have is too many quarterbacks. Sure, why not bring in Michael Vick?
Well, no, they only have one under contract now. All the others are leaving. They got Christian Ponder. So that's an easy one to balance. Mike Vick, Christian Ponder, Mike Vick, Christian Ponder. For 1 year, give me Mike Vick.
Okay. All right. What are the Texans going to do?
Well, based on everything I heard in Indy, I really believe the best fit for Coach Bill O'Brien is Teddy Bridgewater, from the standpoint of ready to play in the NFL, more like Tom Brady than Manziel, who has that kind of Favre streak to him where everything falls apart and he makes things happen. O'Brien is going to want something a little more structured. I'm thinking Bridgewater could end up being their guy. They got to keep their cards close to the vest because they could decide maybe we can trade down. Maybe we don't have to use. If we decide Bridgewater's our guy, maybe we can slide down a few spots and still get him. You can't let that get out who you want, though, because then you have to worry about somebody jumping over you.
Yeah, but if Clowney is a can't-miss guy, let me put it to you another way. Is Clowney a can't-miss guy?
Well, but how can you put Clowney and J.J. Watt on the same team over the long term? J.J. Watt is going to want to get paid a lot of money, and I wouldn't be shocked if J.J. Watt holds out this year because he's eligible for a new contract, and he is one of the most dominant defensive players in the NFL. How do you have J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney over the long haul if both of them turn into great players? It's a lot of money invested in your defensive line if it comes to that, and I think you have to factor that in. How much can you budget under the salary cap over the long term in having these two guys? I think it could make for a great defensive line, but good luck putting a team around them.
I know you've talked about the Browns and Johnny Manziel.
Well, when you look at what the Browns tried to do with Jim Harbaugh, what does that tell you about the Browns' mentality right now? Under owner Jimmy Haslam, they want to swing for the fences. So which guy in this draft, from the standpoint of quarterback, the position they've desperately needed ever since Bill Belichick ran off Bernie Kosar, what's the thing that is the equivalent of swinging for the fences? It's getting Manziel on your team, and you see what happens. Under this rookie wage scale, the financial investment is so much less than it used to be. Yep. The risk is lower. You go for Manziel, and you see what happens. I'd be surprised if they didn't take Manziel if he's on the board at number 4.
I find this blowback on Manziel fascinating because we get to the combine, and then people act stupid. Their opinions, and all of a sudden they realize Jadeveon Clowney is a workout freak and that he's actually fast and athletic. And like, oh, really? Holy smokes, I did not realize that. And now with Manziel, I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think this is about perception of being a spoiled rich kid, that he somehow is not hungry. If he grew up poor and acted this way, we'd say he's fearless. Look at what he's overcome. Drives a Mercedes. He does all the things that every one of us would have loved to have done in college. You have money, you have power, you're going to go wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do. Did he act immature at times? Yes. But now it's almost like, Barry Switzer says, he's an arrogant bleep, but then called him the best quarterback he's ever seen in college history. So I don't know, what the fascination is. It seems personal with Manziel.
Yeah, it does, and there's a certain amount of resentment there. And we always worry about how's a guy going to play when he has money. Is he going to lose his edge? Well, Manziel's got money, and he has his edge, so you don't have to worry about that with him. And the one factor that I think a lot of teams are paying attention to that doesn't get a lot of play, this kid's teammates love him. They love him. They're committed to him, and that's a quality that you bring into a locker room at the NFL level. And if you can have that connection with your NFL teammates, that puts you so much farther ahead of the game than the teams where the other players don't really care for the quarterback very much, and it makes it harder for the quarterback to become the leader of the team.
Do you really think that Ron Jaworski would not take Johnny Manziel in the first 3 rounds?
I think Ron Jaworski was just kind of riffing on radio and didn't realize that was going to be the equivalent of pulling the ripcord on the ESPN lawnmower. You know? Just like he did with Kaepernick last year when he declared that Kaepernick could be one of the all-time greats. That gives ESPN something to talk about for the rest of the week.
Oh, it was amazing that he created programming. It's like ESPN's reporting that ESPN's Ron Jaworski is saying he wouldn't. Would Jaws have taken Russell Wilson in the first 3 rounds?
We weren't even talking. That's the thing about Russell Wilson. We weren't even talking about Russell Wilson.
Nobody was, because he didn't measure up. He wasn't a certain height. And that's the problem with this. Russell Wilson, all you had to do is watch the Big Ten championship game, which we did, or watch the Rose Bowl, which we did, and you see a guy who knows how to play the position. You don't have to be Peyton Manning. You can be Bob Greasy and Bart Starr. There's nothing wrong with that, because you know what? They're Hall of Famers too.
The one concern I do have about Manziel, and this is another point Jaworski made about durability, because when I think to the Chick-fil-A Bowl and I watch how he got banged around by Duke's defense, if he gets hit square like that, because the thing Russell Wilson has, he's got that Barry Sanders mentality, that instinct where he never takes a big hit. Manziel takes big hits at the college level. He gets hit like that at the NFL level, he's going to have a hard time lasting.
Well, he does have to understand, and RG3 should study Russell Wilson from the standpoint of what to do in trouble and slide, get out of bounds. I just think being smarter with those hits. Manziel knows he can't play that way in the NFL. You know, same thing with Cam Newton. He understood, I can run, but eventually I have to learn how to pass. I have to be a guy who makes the defense respect me. Manziel will make plays happen, but I also think he's got to be smart in those hits that he does take. I do agree with you with that.
But then the question is that something you can coach? Is that something you can learn? Or does it all go out the window when you're out there in the middle of it?
Well, all it takes is one big hit, and then you go, oh boy. I don't want to go. I don't want to go through it. I don't know if RG3 can change. He may change because of his injury, but if he was healthy, I don't know if he would be able to change. And that's the scary part of it. I think Manziel is creative enough, smart enough to understand I can be like RG3 or I can be like Russell Wilson. I like my chances staying in the league longer as Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but then there's Mike Vick, who's never changed, and he's only played 16 games once in 12 NFL seasons, and he still physically cannot slide. He just can't do it, won't do it. Dives head first. And I think that's part of the emotion that takes over, and the question is, do you have that instinct? And that's what I love about Russell Wilson, because he gets hit, but he knows instinctively how to absorb that contact so something doesn't rip, tear, or break.
Thanks for visiting with us, Mike.
All right, great talking to you, buddy.
All right, Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com.